Welcome to Rich Conversations. This is another one of our weekly guided reflection sessions where we're going to take about 40 to 50 minutes out of our day to simply just think more intentionally about our own life, kind of what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, so that moving forward we can be more aware and take action in the direction we want to be going. So we'll start this session like we normally do, and that's just 5 minutes of breathing. Very simple. We're just going to breathe in and out and clear our thoughts from our head. We just want to focus on the breath, okay? So starting now, sit up straight. Just breathe in and breathe out. If thoughts come to mind, just let them pass. They're not important right now. All right. So that was 5 minutes of breathing. How do you feel? Let's get out our notebooks or, computer if you're typing, or just be present and be thinking consciously about your answers to some of these questions. We're going to start this session the way we always do, and that's, what are we grateful for? Pick a thing or a few things and write about gratitude. The reason we want to start these sessions with gratitude is just it puts us in a frame of mind that's positive, constructive, selfless, and it paints the canvas for the things we're about to do coming up in a more uplifting and energizing light. Gratitude and patience. Great combination. And the things we're grateful for, it can be something as big as the world, the weather, family, something like that. Or it could be something like this pen. I love the way this pen is designed. I love the way it makes me feel when I write it, with its fluidity and its balance, and also the level of darkness it provides. It's not too dark, it's not too light. I'm really grateful for a product like that, so, something like that. But we can be grateful and we can acknowledge how other people have contributed, whether directly or indirectly in our lives. It's good. It gets us out of our heads. We want to be out of our head and understanding we're a part of this interconnectedness, and that's healthy. Second question. How are we feeling right now? So take a moment and take inventory of your body. How are we feeling? Are we irritable? Are we completely blissful and feel like we're floating? Is our body sore? Are we feeling like we're in a rush, or are we feeling here and present? And there's no right or wrong answer. We're just simply taking inventory of our body. It's important to do this every now and then, or certain moments, so that we can backtrack of how we got to feel this way, right? So it could be positive, it could be negative, but we can see a pattern, right? If we continue to do this and take inventory of moments, whether it's every day or every week, we can think back to, okay, what have we been doing? What has led to this feeling? if we don't take inventory of our body and our feelings, then we just kind of keep going, and we're not really conscious, and we're not thinking about decisions or actions that we've taken that have gotten us to this point. So we can reverse course, or we can keep going on the course, and build onto that. Something I'm curious about is sleeping. I live out in the countryside now and not in the city, and I've noticed my sleep has changed. And I don't know if it's good or bad or whatever. Before, I feel like I slept in chunks of multiple hours at a time, maybe like 3 or 4 hours, whatever. Now it feels like I sleep for an hour and I wake up. Then I sleep for an hour, wake up. But each of these durations, I have vivid dreams. The dreams are intense, and they're so different. They're so variant. And I'm curious kind of what that means in a way. I haven't had sleep like this, I think, in my life. I can't really remember or recall experiences like this where it's constantly like sleeping and waking up, like off and on, but like dreams, every single one. Just dreams, dreams, dreams. I started writing down the dreams, or like a summary of them, but then I just stopped. So it's something I might want to consider again. I'd like to invite us to think of one of our recent dreams. What was it? What was it about? And why do you think that it happened, or that it is? Yeah, I once heard someone say, if you want to know how a person is doing, don't ask them how they're doing, ask them how they're sleeping. Then you have your answer. But as far as how I'm sleeping, I don't know what that indicates. The last dream I had last night of these series of dreams was about this bicycle. So my friend gave me this bike because he has multiple bikes. And it's kind of like a race bike, but it's like, he doesn't use it. It's an older one and very light. The tires don't stay inflated. And the pumps, it's like a specialized tire, and it doesn't, you can't pump it the way like a normal thing would be. So I have it, but I can never ride it because the tires are always flat. I take it in a bike shop, still inflate it, and then like a week later, it's flat again. I used it in Chicago, in my apartment building, there's like a bike storage room, so I would take it out of there, and I'm riding like on the rims about a half mile to the basketball courts on the beach, and then play basketball, and then ride back. That's the only time I used it. Because in the morning, I want to exert energy and just get to the basketball courts right away. But, so I have it here on the farm, and I haven't been able to inflate it. Anyways, I was in Hong Kong, and there's this like path. I should be more specific. It's like these buildings, and then kind of the waterway is nearby, but there's trees. And I sold the bike for $150 because I can't figure out these tires. The bike was given to me for free. I showed up the next day, and I was meeting some friends over here on this like kind of like hill. And I'm walking up, and I start talking to this guy, and the bike is right there, and he said it was sold for $7.99. And I go, $7.99 or $799? And he said, $7.99. I'm like, oh, I got a good deal about it. But it's kind of like that. Like what, why was I in Hong Kong? Why did I have that bike? And I don't know. But maybe that's like it's like jolting me to think about my friend. Maybe my friend is on my mind. I think it's interesting to kind of analyze dreams like that. In books that I'm reading, or just in general, like in older times, without so much digital technology, people really emphasized their dreams, and they were important and often instructional. Because there are bits and pieces from our real life in our subconscious that are kind of like brought out. And I often feel like a lot of times in life we're just numb to everything that's happening. We have become very autonomous. Like we're just not really thinking about things that are happening or that have occurred or that are in front of us. We're not seeing them. And so we're living kind of like a flat life. And it kind of connects too with the stars and the sky and how important the stars and the sky were before modern times with the electricity and light pollution. It was really impactful. So this next question, when was the last time you looked up at the sky and the stars, and you saw the stars How did you feel? What did you think of? Kind of break it down that way. It's on my mind even more recently. The other day we've had this nice moon, this harvest moon, and I just lied in the grass for like 20 minutes and just looked up. And just watched, like nothing. I was in no rush to do anything else. I was just looking up at the stars and thinking about, say, problems I'm having or experiences that make me more irritable, or you just look up at the stars and it's just like, just alleviates that. We've had some interesting conversations on the podcast recently, and coming up ahead. And one is with Joe Kim. He lives in Singapore, and he, for fun, he's really into astronomy. So he pursues total solar eclipses. And he went to recently one in Australia and Mexico, or he took trips to these places to see the total solar eclipse. And that's been on my mind. He said it was like such a surreal feeling. In Australia, that was his first total solar eclipse, and it lasted 43 seconds. And he said it was the most surreal, most magical, most renewed he's ever felt in his life. Like, as a human being, he felt like he was a new person afterwards. And so he sought that out the second time. The second one was like 4.5 minutes off the coast of Mexico, and he had that same feeling again. And that's something that space is able to do. This wonder and this pondering of our smallness in its presence, you know? If we never look up, then we often will inflate our own significance and importance, not only ourself, but in our world. It's a good thing to go look at the night sky every now and then. It's probably the biggest wonder of humans, to look up at the sky. Can be beautiful. What word What word in our vocabulary should we consider removing? This comes from something that came up in a conversation recently with Lakshman Srinivasan in our recording, and I had mentioned I removed the word excited out of my vocabulary. I substitute energize for excited moving forward because I feel like excited is it's an elevated feeling, but it seems like it's anxious or out of control. Whereas energized, it still has that that upliftedness, but it's more controlled, it's more precise. So I don't use the word excited to describe how I feel anymore. I use the word energized. So what's a word that we use often, but if we're more intentional with how we communicate, we could potentially remove? Language and how we communicate is really important, and we want to be aware of the words that we use when we communicate to others or communicate ourselves, because we're in a way telling a story about ourselves or the world. Our words are transcribing our mind in a way. So when we think about negativity versus positivity, we gotta be careful what we say. And I'm very aware of it too in conversations. I pick up on the words people use. I'm very diligent about that. And it's very informative. The words we use are very informative. Because again, it transcribes the mind. And so the words people use give us a direct picture of the individual's mind at the time, or in general. So what's a word in our vocabulary that if we're more intentional, and when we're thinking big picture, how we want to live our life, what word is counterintuitive to that life we want to be living? So I don't want to approach the world just excited all the time. Be energized. I actually got that idea from this artist, Louis Hoffman. He's a French producer, talented individual, and in one of his music videos, he talked about the word excited and how if you're excited, someone tells you, I have a car for you. It's right across the street, and you're excited. So you go across the street, but you're so excited and anxious that you get hit by a car, because you're not in control. Whereas energize is like focused. I was like, I'm now substituting, using that word, using the phrasing. So words are important. So let's be diligent about the ones we choose to use. And it doesn't have to be, you want it to be natural at the same time. You don't want to be inserting words to make you sound better in a way. Like if I just rattled pneumonia microscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, the longest word in the dictionary, needs to be more natural. Anti-disestablishmentarianist. So building a vocabulary or a toolbox that's aligned with how we see ourselves, how we want to present ourselves, how we want to live our lives. Words, movements. Have you ever observed your own body language? That's important. Or it can be an important tool, an effective tool. Because we can tell from our body language. Our body language, again, is communicating what's on our mind. So if we're, down, not making eye contact, if we're kind of drooped over, that communicates something. The pace of how we walk, how we move, everything is a thing, and it communicates something. I've worked in the service industry for a long time, and as a bartender, I've gotten very, very good about picking out nonverbal cues, nonverbal communication, body language. What we say, we spend some time thinking about, discussing how what we say affects how people perceive us, how we perceive ourselves, the life we want to be living. At the same time, the verbal part of it is just one aspect of the whole. Nonverbal is an even greater foundation of how we're perceived by others, how we perceive ourselves and our life. So we also, again, want to be conscious of that. So find a video of you walking. Look at it. What does it say? What does it say about you? It's a reflection of our mind. What we wear is another thing. What we say is just sort of the tip of the iceberg with that. So if you haven't already, be thinking about our nonverbal communication, write about our nonverbal communication. What impression do we want to give the world with our nonverbal communication, our body language? was at the Art Institute of Chicago the other day, and I was with my friend Ken. We've been having these work sessions. We're working on a children's book together, The Boy in the Rocket Ship. And so I've been going to Chicago every week, every other week, something like that. And there's this Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit that he really wanted to go to, that's at the museum. And it closes or discontinues. The exhibit discontinues in a couple of days. So when we met up, we went through it. Georgia O'Keeffe draws a large number of people. A lot of people are interested in her life, her work. And so this exhibit was just focused on her period living in New York. And Ken and I were reading this, and there's a map of the places that she's lived in Manhattan. And it struck me because living in those places now, you have to have a lot of money. Yet at this time in, like the 1920s, going up on rooftops, living in the city, painting skylines was unorthodox. It was different at the time. Whereas like now, it seems very normal for an artist to, I'm gonna go, live in Manhattan in this. I'm gonna be on rooftops. I'm gonna do my own thing. And I mentioned too, like Bob Dylan living in Greenwich Village in the 1960s, and it was very bohemian, and a lot of artists going to and fro, just kind of very non-permanent living. But now, if you wanted to stay in Greenwich Village, it's going to cost you a fortune. And it's interesting how it kind of just happens like that. And so I posed the question to Ken, what if we did now seems unorthodox, but in the future, it will be like the standard and it will be normal. A lot of these areas too, it becomes the artsy neighborhood, but then the cost of living, or the cost is very similar, reflects it. So the underground isn't quite what it used to be or seem. It's very commercialized in a way. Whatever cool or what was underground, seems like very little time to spark in a way. So I guess there wasn't really a question there. What today do you feel is unorthodox that in the future will be normal? Yeah, Ken, we were talking about how many people were there. It's like, yeah, it's always the dead artists that people are interested in. Never when they're alive, it's funny. The appreciation isn't quite there until someone's gone, in a way. There's some cool ones in there. I like how she incorporates nature into a lot of her paintings. Her color tones are pretty consistent, it seems like. Yeah, she has a market. People dig Georgia O'Keeffe. But I think this is why I brought this up originally. Body language, nonverbal, right? So right as I walk into the exhibit, there's a big picture of her, like a headshot. And she looks so stern and cold. And in other photos too, she looks like that. And so you can tell about a person the way they stage themselves, the way they present themselves. And there's a naturalness to it, or an element of that's their personality. But it's also a presentation, an image to give off. She looked like unsettled, unsatisfied. She lived to be 99 years old, just so close to 100. But that's, Ken and I were saying, that's the artist, like the imperfection of it. That's often what makes something beautiful. '99. We'll shift our minds a little bit. This is a question I've been asking on the podcast with guests. I'm curious, what is our favorite consumer electronics product? What consumer electronics product are we most grateful for, or is our favorite? And I think that answer is interesting and revealing at the same time. Just like the words we use, our body language. Consumer electronics. We're going from one end of the spectrum, we're discussing the night sky, the stars, space, and then at the other end, and we're saying by looking at nature, being part of nature, looking at that canvas, it helps put us into perspective. And at the other end, we have consumer electronics and products, and it often removes us from that feeling or that perspective. but at the same time can add value to our life. This next question: what friends have we spent the most time with recently? It's another one of those questions, and when we put thought into it, that reveals the life we want to be living or how we think of ourselves. You can tell a lot about a person from observing the people they affiliate with, the people they surround themselves with. And it's throughout every age, even as children. And as we get older, we can think back, and oftentimes our parents will kind of steer us away or to certain other children or families and stuff like that. Because every person, every word, every conversation, every little thing is an impression that molds us in a way, can affect us, influence us. And so with this question, we want to think just recently, who are people we've been spending more time with? Why do we think that is? What does it kind of mean? It's something definitely on the forefront of my mind recently. Moving from Chicago to rural Wisconsin on a farm, I'm physically removed from one environment and now in another one. And what I've been finding is that I'm spending more time with certain other people or friends that I wasn't before, and now I am. Now I am, or again I am. And I think going back to that dream I was describing earlier, I'm spending less time with that friend who gave me the bike. But he's still on my mind, and I still want him in my life. And so objects can be symbols for something grander, something bigger, like a friendship. Everything can be connected if we're aware and if we are open to examining from kind of a non-biased perspective. We can step back from our life and be objective about things that are happening and the effects of actions that we've taken, like the cause and effect. We can pull out and kind of examine that a little closer. So every little thing affects us. You know, this candle right here that's lit is intentional. It's there for a reason. The plant, fake plant, is there for a reason. The lamp, everything is able to connect something bigger. Maybe not solely by itself, but all together. And so we want to be conscious of it. The objects we keep around us, how we dress, the words we use, the friends that we're around, how we move. Everything tells a story. Everything is communicating something. And if you're not conscious about this, you're still communicating something. But by being conscious with it, we can be more deliberate in the story we tell ourselves, the story we're telling the world, and the life that we're shaping. So why don't we wrap up there for today. Thank you for taking this time out of your day and just being a little bit more thoughtful about your own life, your intentions, how you want to live your life moving forward, how you want it to be. It's good. It's a great step because not everybody does this. And just by taking this a little bit of time, it's not going to make a huge difference, but it will add up, right? All these little sessions that we do overall paints a bigger picture. And so thank you again for putting effort into this, taking time. That's great. Good by you. We'll see you next week. Inspire the future.